and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host through November. Because joining me tonight, he's standing at the castle wall, he's looking down at the land in front of him, and there's a slow procession of something horrific and horrible. There's only one thing to do, and that is to build your towers, because you've got to watch out, because across the land there's the possibility of a Terminus Breach. So joining me tonight is Matt Lloyd. He's got Terminus Breach. It's on Kickstarter right now. We've brought him on to have a chat, as we like to do. So, hello Matt. How you doing?
Hey Richard, I'm doing good. I didn't realize that there was going to be singing. You don't expect me to sing.
Look, if you want me to do a beat and if you want to do a bit of a cappella, then that is fine and dandy with me. Terminus Breach, Terminus Breach. It's been running. This is into its first week now, almost.
Just now.
The first week, yeah. And it's going well. Things are going well.
Let me pull it up. It looks like we are currently 66% funded.
Yeah, which is pretty good. And that's good. The reason that, well, I guess we better say hello to everybody out there. Hello, everybody out there. I hope you started your Christmas. Everybody. I hope you started your Christmas shopping. If not, don't panic. Still plenty of time. The reason that we do this is because there's not enough podcasts out there about board games, and also the other thing is, as well as I like really, really speaking to anyone at all, including Matt Lloyd as well. And the second reason that we do this is because probably about 6 or 7 weeks ago I got introduced to Matt, and he was looking for somebody to do a voice for the Kickstarter video, and stupidly he let me do it. So
you did a great job.
So then I said, okay, so because you've had to endure listening to the countless number of outtakes which I put on an audio file for you, it only seemed fair that it was worthwhile kind of dragging you back on so you could speak to you in real time, so you could suffer even more.
That's pretty good. No, it was actually really fun. I used to work in a recording studio for the 2.5 years. I was a sound engineer in a recording studio, so I hadn't had a chance to really sit down and mess with sound files in some years. So it was really kind of great to get the raw file and be like, oh, what do I do? Like, oh, I get to mix and master this together. Like, yeah, let's do it. I got all excited about it.
It was good fun. It was strange, kind of like, usually because I'm completely unscripted, and as I keep joking with people, it's kind of like, here's the show notes, and they go, I didn't get an email, and it's like, that's right, because there's no show notes. We don't do show notes. We generally do kind of stuff off the cuff. But we're not here to talk about me and my awkward accent that we're here to talk about you, and we're here to find out a little bit more kind of about your good self. So we are going to have a peek back at the past. We're going to focus on the Draka of the present before we look on to the defence of the towers of the future.
What are you talking about?
I have no idea. But
this is great.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got in the hobby?
How I got into gaming? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what's your history?
Because
you say in your bio on Kickstarter, I've been gaming forever.
I have, yeah.
So
I'm 37 years old.
What is...
I grew up in Alaska, and
all right.
Alaska is famous for its long, dark, cold winters, and also what it's famous for is its sense of community, right? And those two things go really well together, because we have these long, dark, cold winters. We all just gather in each other's houses and eat food and play games and stuff. So it really started, back then. I mean, I believe I started playing Dungeons & Dragons was the first I ever played, and that was 2nd edition, I believe. But in fact, what I did before that is I started reading fantasy. I started reading the Dragonlance series initially, and Anne McCaffrey and things like that. I loved all that kind of stuff. So I got into that, like, even back in, grade school, back when I was 6th grade, So, and then started playing D&D after that, and it just, blossomed from there. Everything I could get my hands on. I played Magic. I mean, I won't say that I don't play Magic now. I've just started and stopped playing Magic about 8 times in my life, Because
do you dust off the old collection? Can I bring it out again?
I have a very small amount of cards that I keep with me, but every time I collect up a bunch of cards and I make a bunch of really great decks, and then I play it, and then they come out with some new mechanic that overwhelms me and undoes everything, all the work I just did. And instead of getting into that, I just sell all the stuff that I had, and I keep this little core pack of cards again for another 2 or 3 years until they come out with another mechanic that really attracts me, and then I go and buy a bunch of cards. It's a ridiculous cycle. I don't know how they do it to me.
Are you effectively repeatedly flipping the table? Is that what you do? It's and somebody says, okay, so what you do, just tap that and bring that card back on again. No.
No, I'm not a table flipper. I have a quiet fury, so I just stand up and leave, and then I go sell all my cards,
and then they'll go and destroy a local car.
Right, totally.
But the D&D stuff, do you get because everybody, it's like you say, the Alaska community is kind of all together and stuff like that. Is it, do you get to play for is it just that is the case? You are indoors, it's really, really dark, you've got to stay together and just your did you have mammoth gaming sessions when you were growing up, where it's well, it's Friday, school's finished, and then it's just, let's just crack on with, playing D&D for the next 48 hours?
Yeah, no, that's essentially it. I mean, we did a lot of playing outside and stuff, but when it's minus 30 out, Fahrenheit, right? I just, it's, just in case you were confused,
It's all right. I'm too used to people from the Americas telling me about their rubbish temperature scale being in Fahrenheit.
We have a new scale for everything. You know what I mean?
Let's go on.
If we can come up with a messed up scale for it and then adopt it, we'll do that any day of the week. It doesn't matter if the other one makes sense.
It just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Water freezes at 0 degrees. That's the whole point. And 0 degrees is the freezing point of water.
No,
it's not
the American way is 32. Okay, because it's totally.
So what happens at 0 degrees Fahrenheit then?
It's really cold. It's minus 32 degrees.
What's that? It doesn't make any sense. Does that make any sense?
It's a negative temperature.
It's
less than 0. It hurts really bad, if it's that cold.
What is it that you have in America that freezes at 0 degrees Fahrenheit? This is these are important questions that have to be asked.
Americans.
I have no idea.
It's cold,
I'm just lost. I have no doubt it's cold. But I just like to know what.
It's just like metric and standard. You know what I mean? A metric system just makes entirely too much sense. Why would you base everything off of tens? Just because everything else is based off of tens, and that makes a ton of sense. No, let's go with 12s.
12s is good. We still get inches here. You still get old money and new money, so people will go. You still get things where you go to the store. And it's you try to buy wood for a project or something. They say, well, how wide is that? And you go, it's 50, it's 50 mil. And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Right.
And then they say, it's 4. And then they say, well, what else? Well, you can always get a 2x4. And it's like, well, what? Why are we confusing things now?
A 2x4 mil is very small, I don't want, what am I going to build with that?
Stick. I'm going to pick my teeth with it. That's what's going to be happening instead.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel sometimes America has an infatuation with the arbitrary.
Just making it difficult. I'm just being awkward. It's United States of awkwardness. That's what it is. It's the wrong thing. You got your initials wrong, guys. I'm here to rewrite your constitution. But so you dropped in and out of Magic. Obviously I take it, because usually I say to people, so how big's your Magic collection? And they go, well, I hate to say, but I've got about 5 binders of the things. I've got about, 20,000 cards. And you're saying, I got 5, okay? Deal with it. I got 5 cards.
No, I have about 200. Yeah. I have just some small deck boxes of, basically they're essentially a bunch of mythics and stuff like that I collected from my last couple decks that I just haven't sold, or I want to, because those kind of cards, I sell them to my friends. I don't want to, I could take them to the shop and go offload them there, but they were really hard to get my hands on, So if my friends want them, they can buy them off me, or I'll just give them to them. But I tend to sell all my other ones, and then I keep those really special rare cards, And the last time I played, I made this really huge green and white angel deck. It was primarily mythics. It was a really ridiculous deck. So I still have a bunch of those.
Do you make kind of like legal decks that you could play in a tournament, or is it the kind of, this is the ideal deck so that no matter what kind of happens, I'm always going to win? Nobody's ever going to defeat me.
No,
I am the master of myself kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm very much that way. I like to just crush. I'm not a huge fan of, I don't mind playing tournaments, but I love it like a drafting tournament. You know what I mean? I love deck building. That's one of my favorite things about it is deck building. And I like being able to deck build on the spot, be creative about how you come up with something. So drafting tournaments are really cool for me. But as far as like standard tournaments and stuff like that, you won't find me at one of those with one of my decks because, the people that I always played with, we just kind of agreed on which cards were allowed and which cards were not, I guess. But for the most part, all's fair, because if it's wide open, then it's wide open. Anybody can build a wide open deck. You may have what you're calling an unbeatable elf deck, but I've seen a black and white vampire deck that'll eat an elf deck like right now. That's fully legal. So I don't know. But honestly, the last one that got me out of Magic was Commander. So it's been an era. Oh, right. It's been an era since I've played.
So what kind of game? What kind of games do you play then? What's your kind of your bag? Did you do what a lot of people do, which is you played X amount for a certain period of time, and then education or job got in the way, and then you found yourself going back into the hobby, or have you been kind of slow and steady since you started playing? You've never kind of let it go.
I did kind of take a couple years off there in my early 20s. I went and I moved down to Seattle, and then I backpacked around Europe with my best friend. We actually went to Scotland. I spent some time in Glasgow. And so during that time, that was just all about like living life to its fullest, right? And I was away. I didn't really play many games then. I did play a lot of chess during that time. So I sort of channeled it into something like chess. And I also do art and music. So as long as I'm either making art or doing music, I tend to feel fulfilled. And I was traveling Europe playing music, busking, playing music on the street. So I was doing that every day. So it was a really active time in my life. And I didn't really miss gaming. But then once that period ended and it slowed down again, I just picked up. That was kind of when I got into real heavy Euro games with a crowd of old friends in Alaska that kind of took it upon themselves to start their own collections, and started really opening my eyes to the world of Euro gaming, and it was just took off from there. So and then I just play mostly anything I can get my hands on now,
So you rocked back from Europe. I'm taking it the beard was starting to make itself an appearance, and you were rocking up and said, let's play some Magic, and they're like, no guys, Matt, we've discovered something else, and they started putting Euro after Euro on the table and just saying, while you're away, we're doing this. We're learning points, man. We got our power grid on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're building stations
through the ages,
and everything along those lines.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah, exactly. Exercising our dominion, stuff like that. It was great. We're going to see the Seven Wonders of the world.
That's just you're just dropping knowledge, Mr. Lloyd. Just dropping knowledge.
So your timeline was a little bit off, though. The beard wasn't to make a solid appearance until much later, because when I came back, I had to. I was broke because I'd been traveling for a while. So I really had to find something to do, go to work and start making money. And I started this long string of working jobs that wouldn't let me have a beard, but paid me really well. So I had to make that unfortunate decision over and over and over again. And I finally worked hard enough that I could put myself through graphic design school and start my own freelance graphic design business. And that's when the beard made its it's real unveiling, and it hasn't disappeared since then.
It's an impressive thing. I mean, it's also is technically there should be a stretch goal in the game, which allows you to, once you reach a certain funding target, that you actually get to win, kind of like your beard, and kind of like a replica.
Right.
Once
like
we reach,
I'll do a print and play cutout of my beard.
I think that's potentially that is a stretch goal for say, and I wouldn't spoil them near the beginning. I'd make these people work for their beard. I would say maybe 200k.
That's funny.
Everybody gets a print and play version of the beat. Don't, because I've been let down before about this, and don't think I've forgotten this Peter Blanken or Subterra when we talked about a bearded meeple and what happened with his bearded meeple. Nothing happened with his bearded meeple. So all I'm saying to you, Matt, is just, you don't have to promise me. It's not a case that this is recorded and going out in front of everybody that's potentially backed the game.
Right.
All I'm saying, guys, if it gets to the end of the campaign, right, and there's not like a stretch goal, it'd be a print and play version. You've been doing these 3D files. You could have little beards for everybody. Little Matt Lloyd beards for all of
that you could take to your library and have printed, and then put little hooks on it, like
you can put on all the characters.
You hook it on your ears.
Yeah.
And wear the 3D printed beard, right?
Yeah, you're with me. You're in the room with me. This is where we're going with this.
It's getting worse.
This is going to work. Either that, or it's printable beards for all the characters. I think it just has to be done.
Right. Okay. It's perfect.
That's perfect. How'd you go from being? I mean, I take it you've settled put yourself through graphic design school. You're working kind of freelance on your own business, or you're working for yourself in your own business. I take it during that time, you settled down and everything like that. Are you still playing games? I mean, do you have a decent collection at the moment? Do you have like a collection of games that you grow? I mean, are you still involved in the hobby, or is it a case that, of we eating this week or we playing this week kind of thing? Especially if you're working for yourself.
It's sort of both. So I live in Portland now with my family, so I don't really have my gaming community that I'm used to in Alaska. I don't have that kind of community here, but Portland itself is a huge gaming community, so I can always go to any game store here, and there's always somebody to play any game with. It's amazing here, so I don't want for that. But the truth is that my shelfie is less than impressive. I've just always been. I've never been affluent. I mean, we're not bad off, but I just don't have like money to burn. So like $60 or $100 for a game, unless I'm really gonna play it and I'm really gonna have people over to play it and it's gonna get played, I'm not gonna spend money on it. A lot of times what I'll do, what I think is better, is I'll like throw one of my friends $20 if they'll buy it. Because they'll have people over at their house to play it, and I can go over there and play it with them anytime, But so I don't really have a huge shelf in my house. That being said, I do own games. I do have probably about two shelves maybe worth of games. I have probably 20, maybe 20 games, something like that. So.
You've played them all, though.
I've played a lot of them. Yeah, I definitely am quite active, and I love games. Put one in front of me, and I'll sit down and play it. And I'll have fun with it. I love it.
And what would you say out of that shelf? What's kind of like the favourite one that you have?
I would say.
Now there's a tough question. That's the toughest question you're going to face.
I would say that classically, my favorite game is Seven Wonders. Something about it. It's just it's so magical to me how much fun it is. Like I said, I love drafting, and I think one of my favorite things about games is when games that you don't know who's winning until the very end, because I am a really analytical person. So if I'm playing a game and I can keep track of the score, I will keep track of the score. And if I can figure out a way to manipulate that, I will also do that. Just like that, So the best way for me to get to where I truly just sit and enjoy the gameplay of a game is if I don't know who's winning ever. Like there may be visual indications, but they're probably wrong, So
Yeah, I mean, I've never been the type of... what I do is I pick what I think is the best strategy at the end, and then I kind of slip into the easy land of regret of after
it's
towards
a solid
the end.
strategy,
I'm sitting
depending
there.
on your goals,
I just see myself slipping down. I've never been a first person. I'm always the person that's like in third place. And if I'm third place, I'm kind of happy with that, Or what I'll do is I'll be at the beginning I'll be at first, and I'll make some early gains in terms of points. And then by the end of everybody else is about 70 points ahead of me. I'm looking at you, Lords of Waterdeep is always one where I'm thinking, this time,
got it
this time. That's
funny. I was actually just going to bring up that game
and
in particular, because I've never played that game in real life, but through some Facebook posts about digital board games, I got turned on to the app, and since I started playing it, my name is Matt Lloyd, and I'm a Lords of Waterdeep addict. I seriously love it because it's got that aspect. You don't know who's going to win. The hidden goals are awesome, I just love it. And you never really know. Another thing that I love about that game in Seven Wonders, I feel they have a lot of similarities, because you can start the game with a game plan if you want, but depending on the first couple of cards that you get, that's all going to change.
It's adaptive gaming at its best, because I think it's one of these things you have to do well with the tools that you're given, and try and kind of work it through. Waterdeep's it's one of these things I say, I would never, do you know what? I never talk about it that much. And it's really weird, because I've played it a good, must be 4 times at least, in pretty quick succession. And I'm obviously enjoying what I'm doing, because I am going back and having another game, because it's incredibly easy to learn. I still shy away from the digital versions of games, and I don't think that is. I think that's just because I have a digital life, if you know what I mean. I have my video game part of things which I get involved in, and then I have my analog stuff, all my my board games that I play. The only game I think that the only game I think I would definitely only play digitally is I play a lot of Star Realms.
Cool.
Online and digitally all the time, and it's really difficult for me to go back to the manual version, because I'm at the point now where I've actually got a lot of the additional packs, which are quite cool, and they add quite a lot to the games. Yeah, and you have so many cards, and you learn the strategy. But that's as far as kind of digital
so much
games.
Shuffling and stuff too would be tougher.
It's just, do you know what? It's even remembering your point score, your influence. It's remembering to scrap cards and remove cards.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of just having them light up on the screen, play this one now.
Remember this special movie you can play. Yeah, exactly.
I think honestly, a big part of the reason that I'm playing board games on my phone now is because I'm not in Alaska. I think if I was in Alaska and I had seen that post, I might just go pick it up. And the truth is, I was just eyeing it yesterday on Amazon. It's on sale for $30 on Amazon. I showed my wife, and we might just be adding Lords of Waterdeep to the collection, because my wife games rarely. When she does, she has fun. But she does like games and dislike games. She likes enough she speaks the speakadies, the lingadi, but she's not a gamer, And I think she would really enjoy Lords of Waterdeep. The other thing is that I love, like I said, I've been reading fantasy since I was a kid. So the Dark Elf trilogy I read when I was younger, and I'm a huge Forgotten Realms fan also. So it was kind of nice to dive back into that world,
Yeah. So, but
I wish somebody would make a solid Dragonlance game. That would freak me out. I would buy it immediately.
You'd feel like that. You got to say that 3 times, because that could just appear magically. That'll be one of these things. Cool. But looking for IPs is a big thing at the moment. I mean, there isn't a shortage of ideas, but I think there's definitely more and more kind of IPs are kind of being reconsidered and repackaged and kind of brought up again, and it's always a good time for. We're heading into that era where IPs are celebrating kind of 25 years, 30 years, 35 years of existence. So,
Right.
you know, it's a good time for these to kind of be dusted off and kind of refreshed. Did the design stuff, is that something that's always been with you? Because you've mentioned, I do music, I do art, I'm a graphic designer for the living. So have you always been a kind of a creative person? Have you always been kind of tinkering away? And were you somebody that kind of tinkered away with board games? Or is that creative side, is that something that's kind of come to the table quite relatively recently?
No. I've always been like that. I like I said, I've always done art. Really, like when I got into reading fantasy, I started drawing fantasy at the same time. So all those old, original Monster Manual and stuff like that. That's all the stuff that I loved that I started art with. And then I've just fell in love with art back in the day. So I've always loved art. And it was in high school. I had a really awesome guidance counselor that kind of pointed me towards this class called Communications Design that I got into. And it was like, so this is back in the mid-90s, right? So it was still when graphic design was just starting to transfer into being used on the computer, but mostly it was a drafting table, and you had your awesome markers and your awesome pens. You had to learn how to write in that font and all that stuff. And I just fell in love with it then. And I found out that right then it became clear to me. I mean, as a kid, you never know what you want to do. People ask you, and you're like, I want to be a jet fighter pilot or something because that's cool. But you don't really know, right? And I think the reason is
I wanted to be a fire truck,
right? Totally. And when you like I played music and I did art, and so but back then, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be an artist. Like that's not really an answer. You know what I mean? I want to be a musician. Like those aren't really professions. Yeah. I mean, some people do them, but how are you going to make a living? Was always the answer for that. So graphic design kind of fell in my lap back in high school, and it became clear to me how I could channel everything artistic that I do into actually a profession and make money doing it and still be free to do art as an expressive thing, because graphic design it's a science. It's just there's so much to it. There's so much technical stuff to it that I really dive in that way from like a knowledge and experience. I sometimes do art like for maybe a logo or something like that, but not very often. Mostly what I do is apply good graphic design principles to somebody's art.
Right. Okay.
And my job is to make things pretty and help other people succeed by doing what I do. And then I get to keep my art kind of pure and still do art for gifts for friends and family. I'll do a painting for them, or, if I just want to sit down and draw a release or something like that. And so that's kind of what's been neat about the game is all this art. It was kind of after so many years of designing that way and doing the art that I did for other people, because sometimes I would have a mechanic that was my client, and I would be doing this gritty art style, and then I would do, a beauty salon, and then it would be this smooth, flowery art style. And for so many years, I didn't actually, do anything free expression. And when I sat down to do the art for the game, that was what came out, was this, kind of this old style of fantasy art that I've been doing since I was in grade school, but kind of refined with all the skills that I've learned over the years. And that's how it is. And people gravitate towards it,
Is it difficult to create a vision, create a world out of absolutely nothing when you've been doing stuff, let's face it, unless you're involved in, I guess, in movie studios and certain things. I mean, did you get a lot of people coming along and saying, could you create an entire world for me with different characters? Or was it more a case of, hey, we're opening up the salon in 6 months' time. Could you design our logo and our letterheads and stuff like that for us?
No, nothing to that scale. Nothing to the scale that I'm doing now. I've never done anything like this. And it's sort of, this game has kind of a life of its own. It's sort of built on its own. It was just this, realization I had one day that I love tower defense games and I love board games, and how is there no tower defense board game, And then I just started slowly coming up with ideas about how to put stuff together. And that was like years of just coming up with something and And then it was, after a couple of years of just tossing around ideas, it was like ripping out pieces of paper and writing some little stats on them and moving them around the table. Like, oh yeah, this might work. And then we let it sit for, 6 months. Nobody would mention it. And then it'd be like, I had a dream about this and I was thinking about this. And then about 5 years ago, my wife and I moved to Denver from Alaska because my wife is a PhD. She's a psychologist. And so she got postdoctoral fellow. She had just graduated, just gotten her PhD, and she got a postdoctoral fellowship position in Denver. So we moved there, and just decided to. I mean, I basically decided to take on 2 jobs because I needed to run my graphic design business and bring in money that way. But I also decided to kind of dive in with both feet on the game, and then like 2 years ago. It all just kind of came together, and we reassessed again and just decided to dive in, I suppose, with all 4 feet this time into the game. And here we are,
Yeah. What's it been like, kind of, I mean, you moving into a new place, and then when it came to like playtesting things, were you kind of in that place, were you the guy that was kind of like turning up at game nights with a box full of stuff and saying, would anybody like to play a game? Except not in the jigsaw killing you type way, but I've got a board game here under my arm.
And it was totally crazy because, the game is a tower defense game, right? So it's always been since the beginning that you can play it solo, but it should be able to play with more people. So by the time I ever got it to a shop in the Denver area, I had been by myself in the house for like a week solo playing this or simulating multiple players and trying to take game notes at the same time.
Yeah.
So by the time I got there, I was really awkward and weird and just fit in perfectly,
Oh my weird. It's like, I'm feeling slightly socially awkward.
Right.
Have a seat,
It's
son.
time to go to the game store,
It's time
by the time you come out.
And every night, by the light of the moon, Matt Lloyd transforms himself.
You'll feel like you belong, You'll have your confidence back by the time you walk out that game store.
It's like being in Cheers. But, I mean, is it, in terms of playtesting, is it strange to kind of get kind of feedback from people to kind of take stuff on board? I mean, I know what it's like kind of working on your own thing and getting feedback back. There's 2 ways to approach it. It's like, that's a really bad idea, I hate you, or that's a really good idea, I hate you, because I didn't think of that coming up and now you've made my game kind of infinitely better. I mean, do you have to, especially if it's been a baby and something you've been kind of invested so much time on, was the playtesting side, was that an uncomfortable kind of being out your comfort zone, kind of going in there and asking for direct
Not
feedback
so
kind of thing?
So the oddest thing about this game has been that like I said, it just started with an idea and it sort of has grown on its own. But the really strange thing is that I would never have done a game solely by myself if I had the option. But what's been happening over and over and over again this entire process is as soon as I realize that my game needs something, right? And then I sit down and I really assess, okay, like what does it need and who can I find that does that? And I already know how to do that. You seen that movie Slumdog Millionaire? You seen that?
Yeah.
It's exactly like
that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not fair, honestly, because if I didn't... every time it's so blatant to me that like I have the experience, I at least know enough about a subject that I should, dive in and top off my knowledge and just do it myself. I don't have an excuse, and it's just my family. So if I pay somebody to do it for me, I'm spending family money. I don't have like a business budget on this. So that kind of fell into that category because I've been a creator my entire life. I've been doing art and I'm, writing music and stuff. This is what I do is make new things out of nothing. And then and then hear people's feedback on it. And if you have thin skin about the things that you make, you're not going to make it long doing this, right? You have to learn. But, that being said, the natural human reaction is the second of the two examples that you gave. It's, the reacting in that first way as, fully positive, thank you for the constructive criticism. That's really, awesome, is really... It's a learned behavior. It took me years to do because you're really proud of what you made, but what you learn over time is that somebody doing that to what you made is only going to make it better. With just you having seen it, you may think that it's perfect, but that's because you've got blinders on, because it's just you looking at it. You're not somebody else looking at it. But as soon as somebody else looks at it and gives you their perspective, and you don't even have to take that immediately and do what they said, because it's your thing. You get to choose what you do with their information. But if you integrate that in with your own ideas and it spawns something new and improves what you made, and then somebody else comes along and says, that is perfect, it's like the best feeling in the world. So...
Yeah. And also you can see something, you could take sometimes a game in a slightly different direction that kind of makes that one change can be the thing that kind of is the hook that kind of spawns kind of other ideas that gets you going about, like, what about this? What if we did this instead? Or what if we did that as well? And I think, what about blind testing as well? I mean, did you do that? Did you actually just say, I'll tell you what, here's the rules, here's the game, I'm going to go and sit, I'm going to go and sit in the corner and just let you guys kind of get on with it and let me know what you kind of think?
The biggest hurdle towards starting that was a later thing that I did. I did a lot of guided playtesting for a long time beforehand, because the biggest hurdle for blind playtesting is you have to know that your rules are thorough. That whatever they're gonna come up with, you're not here to explain it and answer the question. So everything you've ever said about explaining this game, every question you've ever answered while you were live playtesting, you need to answer that in your rules. So until those are solid, I wouldn't put playtesting in front of somebody. But once I did, that was really then the feedback is not about the game itself, because hopefully you've got that mostly ironed out by that point, but it's on the rules. Like, we didn't know how to do this, and we didn't know where to find the answer. And then to clear that up,
No, totally. No, I was playing a game on Friday that everything was really running really, really smoothly. I mean, this thing was going like butter. And there was just one bit where we couldn't find how you got experience. You earned kind of energy, and it wasn't clear how you got the kind of experience, and it was in one line in a fairly innocuous part of the rules, and it was like, oh right, yeah, and I thought, like, if that had been kind of maybe missed out, then that would have completely taken out a whole kind of chunk of the game. And I think that's I see it as, we've written quite a few kind of previews now, and one of the things you cringe at is when you're reading through the rules and you're going,
it's not making any sense.
I need to speak to this person about this mechanic because this isn't clear from the rules, and it's kind of like, it's kind of rolling. And there's a big difference. I've seen a lot of designers actually bringing on people to write the rules and play about with the rules for them, because they're aware that, it's getting that right, because it can make the difference between somebody saying, I got it delivered after I helped found it on Kickstarter, and I played it once, and it took me an hour and a half to learn the thing, and we only played it for 45 minutes because we kept having to refer back to the rule book, and there's kind of nothing, there's nothing worse than kind of that.
And here's where I am trained to do layout, and printing and stuff like that, because I'm a graphic designer. And my father is an English major, so I grew up, he's a real stickler for our grammar and our spelling. We had to be really good at that the whole time. So I've got no excuse not to write my own rule book, right?
I know, exactly. You'd probably be really tough on yourself as well if you got it wrong.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I definitely have. Yeah, well, I feed it to my brother, my older brother. I feed it to him.
All right.
And if he catches it, then I do get really down on myself, because that means he's a little bit smarter than I am.
I doubt that's very true.
So, To answer your question to get back to playtesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I used to love most is when I would come up with something new about the game, and then I would bring it to a gaming store and put it down in front of strangers and have them play, and they would break it. Right, inevitably, if they're like high quality gamers, they're going to find a mechanic about your game that has a loophole in it, and they're going to take advantage of it. And they're going to break your game. They're either going to win it or they're going to, lose it horribly. But either way, the balance is off, and it puts it right in your face how it's broken. Mm-hmm. I did that for, I don't know how many years. I got my game broken over and over and over again. And every time somebody broke it, I just walked out with a smile on my face because it was so good to have that happen in the playtesting phase. Every time that happened, I felt really good about that. Because I'm trying to make a thing here, right? If I skipped over this, then I might put something out that's subpar. So, and I go back and I fix whatever it was that got broken and how it got broken, problem solve that. And then a lot of times that led to new things in the game because I had to introduce a mechanic to solve that, or take away a mechanic in order to solve it, modify something. So then I would bring it back with that new mechanic to play test that, and somebody would break something else or break what I just made, and I'd have to go back again. But then naturally there was this time where I took it and people tried and they couldn't break it. They just had fun playing. And then I took it again and said, hey, last time I dropped this, people tried to break it and they couldn't. I want you to try and break my game. And they tried and they couldn't do it. And I hit a point at some point where the game was just solid. The gameplay was tight. The numbers were absolutely right. There's no way to break the game. I've invited people over and over and over again, and what I've found is this. If you try and break my game, you're just going to come up with this crazy strategy that I've never thought of that's going to work really well. You're going to do really well in the game because you can't break it, but you're going to find some way to play the game really well that I never intended. But it's going to happen. So it's really been, it's been the best thing for my game is having it broken over and over and over and over again.
But that is tower defense games to a T, though. When I saw, when I was first introduced to Terminus Breach, and I was looking over it and kind of reading about it, and you were I was kind of reading the documentation and looking, what it was. The only game I could think of which was kind of in the same kind of ballpark was Mechs versus Minions, because that is kind of, it is a case of you're facing an unstoppable horde and you've got to use kind of various different tactics, and there wasn't anything else kind of close to it, which was kind of interesting. Right. I personally am a huge fan of tower defense games. I sunk literally years into Jelly Defense, which was an Android game. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. And not only just completing levels, but getting the kind of the 3 stars on every level and getting the kind of the perfect.
You always got to go back through, right? That's what tower defense games are fun twice. Yeah. You got to work your way through the game. Yeah. Then you have to crush the game.
Yeah. Exactly. You just have to dominate everything.
As a Kingdom Rush fan, I think that was my favorite series. Was those 3 games? Kingdom Rush, they're just so amazing because the storyline is incredible and just it's really the game that inspired the art in Terminus Breach the most.
But yeah, that's what I think. I can't think of anything else kind of out there or that has been on the market of late, which was kind of tower defense. And it was like,
well, that's kind of the thing is there wasn't, back when I came up with this, it was before even the King's Armory came out, so there really wasn't anything ever at all that even remotely resembled a tower defense game. So I didn't, and I wasn't planning on making games. I didn't start out with that plan to I'm going to sit down and start a publishing company and make games, right? Where am I going to start? I had this idea, right? So I didn't start with a game or a game mechanic or an idea of how a game works and modify that or build off of that. I really just started from scratch. How can I let's start with a grid. And then how am I going to make those work? So all the mechanics in my game are all, for the most part, they're unique. They're made only to fit the game the way that, and I honestly couldn't tell you if other games have mechanics. Now that's not to say that are influences in my game, because this one's might be a little controversial, but I am a huge Catan fan. I love it. Settlers of Catan. And
it just ruins everything. Just ruins the whole show.
I know.
It's fine. Do you know what I mean? No, you like what you like. If people like what you like, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Everybody's got to find their own way. And Catan does like so ridiculously well, and it's introduced so many people to the hobby. So what can be wrong about something which has introduced so many people to the hobby? You know.
I definitely took some nods from Catan that are in my game. You know, set collection aspect. There's, you know, little things like that were just so well done in Catan that I wanted to nod to one of my favorite games ever. You know.
What's it been like getting the word out there? Because
God, it is exhausting. I gotta tell you, like, I've never felt so much like a David surrounded by Goliaths. I don't know if you've seen a picture of me, but I'm a pretty decent sized guy. I'm like 6'2", 280. You know,
I've got a poster up on the wall. Yeah, you're my favorite. You're my favorite
cardboard cutout. You know,
as officially my favorite bearded game designer. You know,
that's great.
You get flowers in your hair. You're looking a bit wistful, but the beard is strong. It's the one outside, you know, the one where you've got the shirt on.
Yeah.
You know, that's
where
what
I've got the shirt on. That's good. It is. That does set aside the rest of my videos where I'm out there without a shirt on.
I can't even. I'm saving them for later. But but anyway, I mean, as somebody who is kind of reaching out to people and saying, guys, I got this game, but you know it's ready. It's kind of, can you help me kind of spread the word out? You said it's like it's been exhausting. It's been like, you know, David surrounded by Goliaths. I mean, is it with the nature of the beast, the way that Kickstarter is now? Has it been really, really hard work to get people kind of interested, to get people kind of involved?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to find your champions.
It's still kind of not working. You know, I'm trying to do all these things. Places that I'd love to be, where exposure that I would love to have, I haven't gotten. I don't know if I will ever get over the duration of the campaign. Like Kickstarter projects we love. I don't know how to get on that. I mean, I did over 50% in the first 48 hours and didn't get it. So I don't know what their qualifier is, but I didn't get it. So I'm not getting any traction there. Kicktrack, I'm not getting enough to be on Kicktrack. I'm not going to be on the Board Game Geek hot list. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, those kind of things are holding me back, but it is sort of strange because I've been working on this game for so long and I've been studying Kickstarter and you know, kind of the business administration aspect of this for so long that when I really started to take this seriously, like 5 years ago, Kickstarter was the way to do it. You know what I mean? Back when they like came out, you could really just go on with like hand-drawn stuff. If you had a decent halfway formed idea, you could probably fund it on Kickstarter for a game. You know, it was really about like developing raw ideas. And so I got my stuff developed to a certain point, but then by the time I got there, Kickstarter had developed enough to they're like, no, you need to be a little more professional. You know, you need to have like game development done. Like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So I got my game development done. They're like, no, you know what? You should really have like art on your prototypes. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll get art of my prototypes. So now it's like you really should have a little business and you should have a marketing budget and you should know everybody in the industry and all of these things should be checked off before you even try and launch a game on Kickstarter, you know. So it's very different now than it was when I started out doing this as a one-man project. Back when I started it was much more realistic that I could do this, you know. But I mean, it's going to happen. I'm confident that we're gonna fund, but I don't know that we'll ever be on the front page of anything. You know, I honestly don't know how to solve this. It's really interesting because Kickstarter's ever evolving. It's day by day. So now that it is so difficult for first-time creators to get through the noise, I mean, I'm kind of thinking that like maybe the best way to do it is to find, I mean, I don't know, champions within the industry or something. You know, but that's the only way, you know, is to like attach myself to a Goliath, maybe, because I just don't, I don't have like a marketing budget, right? Any money that I spend on advertisements is, money that's not going to bills. It's just me and my family trying to do this thing. So I don't have like BGG ads because I can't afford BGG ads. The one big thing. I mean, here's how hard it is to keep up with current events. Because I launched first in March. And there were no minis in my game then. And when I launched in March, you had to have minis in your game in order to even vie for people's attention. Now, I'm giving away the STL files for my minis because people don't care about minis. This is 8 months later. I mean, it's not that people don't care about minis.
Yeah, but it's the next thing. No. That's it. It's kind of changing. But you got to remember there's been a couple of big hitters. I mean, the latest thing that's come out is this whole Ninja Division thing. Ninja Division, the latest kind of dungeon explore game, took over $1 million, and then they're turning around and saying they're $750,000 in debt, and the campaign was only up to like $80,000. It's like, well, how can you have And so people are starting to be cautious. There's been quite a few little campaigns which have been delayed. That are these big kind of huge behemoths, and I think that you'll get a natural cycle where people are going to turn around and say, do you know what, actually, I want to maybe see somebody that is putting their ass on the line here, that is actually kind of working their ass off, that has kind of done everything, that is trying to follow up everybody. And I'm not saying, right, for a second, that say your Mantics and your Simons of this world don't produce high quality products, but then you get Monolith doing like a pre-order system on Kickstarter.
I mean,
and you're just like, oh, guys,
blatantly a pre-order system.
What the hell happened?
They didn't even make any pretenses that.
What the hell happened?
They straight up said like, this product is finished. We just
It's ready. It's ready to go. Yeah, that was the agreement. It's ready to go and everything like that.
And it's happening right next to my campaign. So it creates this really odd dichotomy, But unfortunately, my campaign is like way back in the corner.
Yeah, but I mean, is this now kind of like the current? And I brought this up in a group. I brought this up in a couple of groups quite recently, which was and I've said this in a couple of podcasts now, that there seems to be this big huge thing about getting funded within the first 48 hours, which is pushing people to drop their funding goal to see that they are funded in the first 48 hours. And to me, I think it's bullshit.
Well, I mean,
that people like first time creators like yourself are getting forced into a corner to drop their drawers in order to have a really low funding level in the hope that you get funded.
I sort of half agree with you. I sort of half agree with you because I, as a creator right now, I absolutely wish it were the way that you're saying. I agree with you in that. But when it comes down to any kind of business venture ever at all, there's always been a certain amount of risk, and you have to be willing to go into debt yourself in order to make your business venture. So those kind of things have always happened behind the scenes from a business perspective, right? Kickstarter and the way the market is now, it's become kind of commonplace knowledge that businesses are starting to do this, and that changes perception. But the fact of the matter is, businesses have always done that. They've always given you a false, idea of what it was so that they could boost sales, because they know that if they boost sales, they're going to make up those costs in the future.
Yeah.
They're investing those future costs, those future, it's basically taking, money on paper from point A to point B that you're going to earn here and put it here instead. So I don't know. It kind of makes good business sense, but I also wish that the market wasn't the way that it is, so that we had to do that. But then again, like we're talking, it changes so fast. So here's another thing is, I was just seeing some posts earlier today about reviews, about paid previews, right? And when I launched back in March, I had multiple kind of smaller companies review my campaign. The biggest one I did was Geek Dad. It was a written review. And then I had Unfiltered Gamer. I had Michael Wright at Unfiltered Gamer do a video for me. And he was that was like my big feature video review. But I didn't do well. And a lot of the feedback I got was that I needed to really invest, some money in a good preview video and get either the Dice Tower or Man vs. Meeple. And at this time, 8 months ago, Tantrum House wasn't even really a thing, right? So it was really just those two that was like, do that and put it in front of their audience of 200,000 people. And that's what you need. So 8 months go by. Or rather 6 months go by, I save up enough money, and I get my paid preview from the Dice Tower from Mark Street, which is really amazing. It's like the most incredible overview. The way that those two understand the game, and they do such a good job explaining it, it's phenomenal to watch. But I don't really know that it was worth it at this point. And now people are like, oh, you probably shouldn't have spent that money on the paid preview. You probably should have taken that money and given it to a whole bunch of smaller places and had them do it, because these people really care and will get behind. But it just moves too fast. Things change too fast. I just can't keep up. You know what I mean? I spent 6 months relaunching and doing what people asked, and by the time it's time to do it, they're like, that's not really what we want. Probably shouldn't have paid that much money for a video. So, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? I guess that's my point. Like next week, the whole opinion of Kickstarter might change because of something, and all of a sudden I'm on top, Who knows?
Well, in fairness, Matt, you've got, at time of recording, you've got over 20 days to go. You're at 66%. This is traditionally, where things kind of stay steady and grow continually, and then before the rush, potentially at the end. So things are obviously they're kind of looking strong and good. It
definitely is looking good. But on my side of it, it's not looking great because we've hit that plateau really hard, and we've actually bounced up and down once or twice since then. So, we're really not a whole lot further than we were 4 days ago. We just got that initial rush on the flash funding goal. We're just above 50%, 48 hours in, and now we're at 66%. So it's a slow climb from here on out. The good news is, though, what's really interesting is there are 721 people following the campaign.
Yeah,
like that have clicked that little heart. Remind me.
Yeah,
721 people following the campaign. I've got 180 backers. Yeah. So hopefully that last 48 hours, I'm really holding out hope that when all those people get a message, a decent percentage of them will convert, and that'll start unlocking stretch goals in those last 48 hours. like the beard thing.
You have to do the beard thing. If you don't do the beard thing, I'll probably do nothing. I'll sit in the corner and sulk and say there's somebody else that didn't listen to my amazing idea, and just cry myself asleep again, and wear my Matt Let Me Down T-shirt around town for a couple of weeks.
I'll promise you right now, that's my $200,000 goal. If we get anywhere near, that's what you said, right? 200,000. If we get anywhere near 200,000, I'll make a cardboard cutout of my beard as a PMP, and everybody can put it on, have little holes in it for a rubber band, and you can put it on and do your best Matt impression. Put on some sunglasses and a flat cap, and it'll be.
Oh wow! It'll be like an army of Matty Lloyds going about.
Frightening kids.
Will the real Matty Lloyd please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. We've not actually spoken about the game, which is absolutely fantastic. But there's lots of people out there that have spoken about the game. But for people that haven't checked out the campaign, and go away, pause the podcast, and go and check the links. There's links in the show notes to show you where the podcast is. But Matty, what is the elevator pitch for Terminus Breach TD?
It depends. I have two. I always start with both. I always start with, do you know what a tower defense game is, right? Because it very much changes elevator pitch. But if you don't know what a tower defense game is, it's basically where there's a map and a path, and bad guys march along that path, and they try to get from one end to the other, and you build towers or traps or something, and you try and stop that from getting to the end of the path. And if they get off the end of the path, that works against you. That's the basis of a tower defense game. That is also the basis of my board game, because it's a pure tower defense game. It's got a grid with a map and a path, a fully modular map and path, so you can make whatever map you want and path that you want once it's yours. There's 15 waves of bad guys that come along the path. It's split into 5 battles of 3 waves each, and at the end of every... This is weird. I feel like you should be saying this. I feel like you're better at it than I am. You know, because I've heard you say it
and
so...
at the end of every 5th wave, you fight a boss.
Each with unique and powerful abilities.
Each with unique and powerful abilities.
That's pretty great.
You know.
And at the end of each battle is a lull. I can't say the lull the way you do. Oh.
There is a lull.
Is that hard to say with a Scottish accent? Lull?
No, it's not that. It's not particularly that hard, but it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's really difficult kind of doing that craft. You know, it takes a lot of
talking.
It takes a lot of hard work. Yeah, well, you know, I'm good at talking, so it's all fine. So there's a lull, so you can either you can use money to up your reinforcements, to upgrade your towers, or you can even appeal to the king for help.
Yeah.
At any point, basically at any point, if the Draka get too far along the track and potentially gets I think it's your panic level up too far, then the king basically calls it a day and the game is over.
He recalls the armies and the game ends. Yeah, so.
You see?
Yeah, and it's basically every turn.
Do you know, look, I recited that thing like 38 times.
Totally, you did,
totally.
And I think my favorite line in the whole thing is, every turn is a wave. I think that was actually the line that I had to ask you to turn down the Scottish. I'm like, nobody can understand the word turn. Exactly. You see, in America, turn has 1 syllable, you see. Turn. Yeah, it's got like 3 with you. Turn, you know?
It's a turn. It's a turn. It's a turn.
My wife is like, a ta-dun?
It's like that.
Every wave is a ta-dun? What's a ta-dun? You know?
Yeah. It's a small Scottish oat cake that's got honey on the top.
I gotta tell you, when we first got to Glasgow, when I was traveling, we walked into a pub to go get a Guinness, like right off the bat, you know? And this guy, he heard us talking, and he came up, and we were sitting at the bar, came up and put an arm around each of us, and he said, "Where are you fain a biggin?" And I just had we just stared at him, and he looked back at us, and he's all bleary-eyed, and he's like, we said, "What?" And he's like, "Where are you fain?" He said, "Biggin, hey, where are you fain?" I was like, "I don't know." He said, "America, right?" I was like, "Yeah, we're American." He said, "Well, so where are you fain?" Like, "I don't know what you're saying to us right now." He said, "Oh, that's right, you're American." Let me slow this down. "Where are you from?" You know, I was like, "That's great." You know? And he said, "And you're a big guy." That's what I'm saying. Big guy, biggin. It's like, oh, thanks for the translation. You know, about 3 days later, we started to understand everybody.
Oh my goodness.
You know? But Glasgow, I learned Glasgow is its own unique crazy when it comes to a Scottish accent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Glaswegian accent
it's West Coast. It's
no
far
joke,
West Coast,
you know?
yeah. Edinburgh's a bit more posh.
Oh, is that right?
Where Glasgow's a bit more kind of higher pitched. And Edinburgh's a tourist city and Glasgow's the working city. That's the kind of the way to look at it. Edinburgh's got the castle and Glasgow's got everything else.
Glasgow's got Suckyhall Street, you know. Right? That's what
It has indeed, yeah.
Actually,
and Edinburgh's got Princess Street, you know.
Right. So we were busking, playing music on the street, and we were actually playing traditional Scottish and Irish music. That's what as part of what we grew up playing. And so my buddy had a set of shuttle pipes, and I was playing a whole bunch of other accompanying instruments. And it got to be too cold in Glasgow for his fingers. He had bad circulation in his fingers. He couldn't get it moving fast enough on the pipes to play. So we kind of got stranded in Glasgow, and so I had to work. We took under the table jobs because we didn't have visas. I worked as a bouncer there on Sauchiehall Street for a little bit, and that was quite an experience. I grew up sort of fighting in Alaska, but I've never been headbutted so much in my entire life. I got to tell you. That's growing up in Alaska. I thought that was just a ridiculous stereotype of Scottish people, and that's not true. It really is how like Americans really push or spit or flick something in your face to start a fight. Scottish people the headbutt's a qualifier. No,
we go for the kill. We go for the kill.
Scottish people figure if you make it through the opening headbutt, then you're worth fighting.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's the cost? The pledge level.
It's
for pledging on the game.
$49. The game level. The game is $49.
Yes, the game level. There
what are we
go.
talking about, anyways?
Yeah. What are we talking? It's all right. We're only talking about Kickstarter.
On the Kickstarter campaign, I have a $1 pledge level for anybody that wants to get in, where you get the STL files for all 5 of my boss miniatures that I sculpted, and you get access to the pledge manager and everything like that. And the game level is $49 for the game and all unlocked stretch goals and everything. And then I have 60 custom metal coins as an add-on, and 24 by 36 inch. I don't know how many millimeters that is. Neoprene mat as an add-on. And then I have 2 kind of collector levels in the game, which are running out quickly. But I have a 249 level where you get everything above that, and you get to collaborate with me to make a Draka in the game, to help make a bad guy. That'll be a permanent part of the game. And then I have a 499 level where you get to help collaborate with me to make a playable character in the game. And then with that level, you get 2 copies of Terminus Breach, and you get I'm making wooden boxes where I've done a lot of wood burning decoration in my life also. So I'll make these wooden boxes the same size as the Terminus Breach box, and do some wood burning and painting on it, and make those up. And then you can take out hopefully your game trays and everything that's in the box and put it in your wooden box. And then the second copy is to keep it in plastic in the corner, just in case it ever gains value. So it's really like that's the collector edition. Yeah, those are the ways to back.
So, and if people have listened along tonight and they want to keep an eye on where you are up to, where do you exist on the interweb next?
Pretty much everywhere. I mean, I'm on BGG. I'm big on Facebook. I'm all over Facebook. I have a Facebook page and a Facebook group for Terminus Breach. I'm on Twitter under Terminus Breach. I'm on Instagram under Terminus Breach. You pretty much find me everywhere except where I'm not allowed, like Reddit. No, that's not even true. I actually have fans of the game, backers of the game, that are ambassadoring for me on Reddit, that are going on and dropping on posts, which is nice because I can't do that myself.
Cool. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that we put all of these links in the show notes so that we've got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and our website, which is we'renotwizards.com, and our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com, and you'll also find us on all the interweb net podcaster catch thingies, which is like your Stitchers and your Spreakers and your Acasts and your cast boxes and Podknife, and even on Podbean itself. And you get us on YouTube because Podknife, because Podbean puts everything that we make onto YouTube as well. If you like what you've listened to tonight, and bless you if you have, then consider going to Apple Podcasts and dropping us a rating or a review. If you are going to give us a rating, then don't give us 10 stars, because that makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star, because that makes us cry, and I'm an ugly crier. Give us 5 stars, because it's in the middle, and it's average. And we're just a little bit average.
Wizards after all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the person who's not been average tonight is rather wonderful, rather fantastic, Mr. Matt Lloyd. Thank you very much, sir, for being on.
It was a good time. Thank you.
There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Matt?
No. I mean, I am. I'm actually a professional ninja wizard. That's what I am.
I don't want to know that. I'm not hearing that. And the second thing is...
I understand that you are not wizards. I get it.
That's very, very good, and you should recognise that. before you insult me, sir. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Matt. Say goodbye, Matt.
Cheers. Goodbye, Matt.
And it's a goodbye. It's again. Yeah, okay. It's like you guys get together and decide to do this every single time. And the second thing is and it's a goodbye from me. So remember, stay safe, roll sixes. And, I don't know, watch the video, and if you want to hear me butcher a Scottish accent, but remember that you should remember to check out, and if you really like the look of Terminus Breach, remember to back it as well, for goodness sake.
Back and share today.
But until the next time, you great big jobby, goodbye.